and welcome to part one of Africa's premier sports video podcast, the Three Quarters Podcast. As usual, we're reminding you to jump onto the hashtag 3QP and let us know what your sporting interests are. I'm Dumima Dofil.
And I'm Narokamuya.
So, match day 11.
Yeah.
And this was the final before the final, I would say.
Yeah.
So, KCB versus Kabras. And that was definitely a thriller. I think most people had predicted, tight scores, depending on how KCB played on the day. A lot of people saw Kabras win, but KCB winning that 44-20. I honestly feel, though, the scores don't necessarily reflect what was going on the pitch. You would have, just by watching the game, without knowing, anything, you would have said that maybe, the score was a little closer. But no. KCB in the last maybe 15 minutes just decided, no. But I feel like it wasn't, in my opinion, Kabras was not outplayed per se. It just got to a point where things just were not working for them, and KCB were definitely capitalizing on that. I mean, kudos to KCB, they definitely stepped up. I would not say this is the KCB I have been seeing the whole season, but they definitely stepped up on this game. All their big guns were like on point, doing their things right. But yeah, and I mean, that translated into a win.
Into a win. It was a match of the season. I think at the beginning of the season, everyone had predicted that this was going to be the biggest game of the season. Forget about the Ngongoro Derby, forget about Kabras versus Queens. Everyone was shaping up for this game. And this was evidenced by the number of people who were at Impala over the weekend. I got there, blunder on my end, I must say. I got there maybe at about 3 p.m. and
it was
packed.
Full,
It was completely full. I got lucky that somebody was able to give me some space where they were sat, but I would have been in problems. But evidenced by the huge number of guys or the huge turnout at the Impala grounds. It was also good to note that the Kabras top dogs, they actually Western Kenya Millers top dogs who are there supporting the Kabras boys. To show you how big of a game this thing was, I think Harlequins made, to me, a bright decision to move the game on Sunday.
Yes,
because all the focus is going to be on...
Nobody would have gone for that game.
Nobody would have gone for that game. But Kabras started the game with intent. They were able to force KCB into infringements in their 22, and Philip Wokrach converted that. Then Darwin Mukidza responded, and after that it was a trade of blows for about 60-65 minutes. And then KCB just took the game in the dying minutes. One thing was very clear for me. Do not underestimate experience. Do not underestimate maturity. Because the core of the KCB team is very mature. When you think about, granted their front row, Peter Carrier and Oscar Sorano are young, but they've been in the Simba setup for a hot minute now. So you have Peter Carrier, Oscar Sorano, you have Curtis Lako, you have Oliver Mangeni at number 5, Davis Chenge, Andrew Monde. The core of KCB is pretty mature, and we saw that on the day. If you ask me what happened, I think it was a case of KCB denied Kabras forwards, to dominate the game. And the most lethal thing about Kabras this season has been their backline. Now, anyone who knows about rugby knows that for your backs to perform, then your forwards have to set the platform. And KCB disrupted that. And the KCB backs matched up to the Kabras backs. And that's exactly what happened on the day. Their ball carrying was exceptional. And somebody mentioned it yesterday after the game. They knew the game was going KCB's way when KCB was scoring when they had sin bins. Right? KCB were indisciplined. They were conceding penalties. They were getting players binned, but they were still able to register points. So, if you ask me, this was purely a case of maturity and experience. And the KCB Park were very composed. They've been in these situations very many times. They knew the pressure was going to be high, and they handled it the best. They just were better mentally than Kabras were. And you think about tactics you employ against, right? You have your base of a game plan, but each team is different, and you have to change your tactics according to the team that you're playing. And you think about the kind of work that Curtis Olavi has been doing in this during the season, and all waiting for this game.
Yeah.
Kabras have been whooping everyone 40 plus. It's only Queens they didn't get to 40, and Homeboys, which they got to 39. But this time they're on the receiving end. So you have to admire what Curtis Flago is doing at KCB. And I say that because anyone who sat down and talked to Curtis will understand how much work, how much research he puts into his game, he puts into his work, and he puts into understanding the game of rugby. To quote him, actually I think we were having a chat just after the Kenya game, Elgon Cup. We were in the airport in Kampala and we were having a chat with Curtis. And he said, he rugby is science. You have to start looking at it from that perspective if you're ever going to improve. We know that he, due to the relationship between KCB and Western Province, he's down south. He's in Cape Town maybe once a year, just going for coaching clinics and understanding the game a bit better. So you saw that on the day, and you saw how Curtis was able to shut off, through his game plan, of course, was able to shut off the devastating Kabras backs. Wokorach was a spectator in the game.
Yeah, actually, I've never seen him play like that. And this is one of the games where you're looking at who'll be your man of the match, and he was not among them.
He was nowhere among the top players, because you see, Philip Wokorach thrives in open play, and he's very. I mean, don't take it away from. I'm not saying that he's not a class player. He's a class player, but he really thrives in open play. And if you look at how KCB played the game, Ken Moseti at number 10 and Darwin Mukidza at 15, when Mukidza was playing, whenever they had to kick for territory, they never kicked it to Philip Wokorach. They always kicked it to Kevin Keegan, who had, by his standards, a very below par game, and he was able, his error rate was high, and KCB were able to capitalize off that. So it was a clinical display, if you ask me, from KCB. I feel that they came into the game knowing exactly what needed to happen, shut out the Kabras forwards. The backs don't get into the game. Ball carrying is going to be key. Temperament is going to be key. And like we're saying, our mental strength is going to be key. And on the day, despite having, by the way, bad scrums and bad lineups, which was very shocking, they were able to carry the day.
I think I remember that conversation with Curtis, and he was talking about how he'd borrow things even from Jerome. He's like, no, he's a very good coach, and all you need to do is look at what he's doing, but also tweak it so that it works for you. So having done all of that, I'm sure he's been looking at Kabras and how they play, and how they've been coached, and then just sort of countering that and making sure it does not happen. And something that I remembered now after all that is forwards win the game and backs decide by how much.
That's true. Yes, that's very true. Forwards win the game and backs decide by how much. Well,
that's how that game went. Then we've got the other games, of course. The 2 p.m. game was Impala versus Homeboys. Impala winning that, to my surprise, 36-27. Nakuru versus Mwamba. Nakuru winning that 29-15. Nondis versus Blackblood. That I felt was going to be a tough game just because of how many Blackblood players are at Nondis. And that was Nondis winning 10-7. And then Mean Machine versus Oilers. Oilers winning that 36-15. And of course the game that was played the next day on Sunday. Harlequins versus Strathmore, 41-23 in favor of Harlequins. However, at halftime, Strathmore were actually ahead.
Yes, they were ahead. So I mean that's match day 11. I think we got wrong maybe 1 or 2 predictions. It's sports. Sports. That's just
whatever happens on the day happens on the day. So in terms of standings, we always tell people what the standings are. But since you know our social media handles, today you tell us what the standings are. After those games and after what happened, remember hashtag is 3QP. You can find us on Instagram, you can find us on Facebook, and you can find us on YouTube. Tell us what the standings are. But we talk about match day 12 now. So we've got Oilers versus KCB, Nondis versus Homeboys, Machine versus Kabras, Blackblood versus Impala, Nakuru versus Strathmore, and our feature game is Mwamba hosting Harlequins.
What's the first game?
First one is Oilers versus KCB.
KCB.
No brainer. Nondis versus Homeboys.
Wow. I'll go with Nondis.
I'll go with Homeboys on this one.
Okay. All right.
Then Machine versus Kabras.
Kabras, of course.
Blackblood versus Impala.
Impala.
I think it depends on which Impala shows up on the day.
Yes.
But if it was this one
If
from
it's this one from this weekend,
then Impala, yes.
Yeah.
Nakuru versus Strathmore.
Nakuru.
Yep. And the last one is Mamba versus Harlequins.
It's going to be a tough one, but I think I'm going to call Queens in this one.
I think I'll go with you as well.
Yeah.
Mamba, come on. Prove me wrong. Prove me wrong.
Yeah.
But yeah, guys, go watch the future games. Go support your team. Also find us on social media. That is by following us on Instagram, liking our page on Facebook, and subscribing to our YouTube channel. I'm Denise Duffield.
And I'm Narakamwe.
See you in part 2.